In this lesson, I'm going to show you 3 colorful pumpkin bead ideas for your fall jewelry pieces. And even though I like the 3 designs, I have to say that I consider the third one to be the cutest, and I hope you'll agree with me on this. Hi, I'm Mihaela from Learn Polymer Clay, and let's dive in. I'm working with white clay. You could use scrap clay for this project as well. And I've used navy blue chalk pastel to color the clay. Then I rolled the polymer clay into a ball. I used the pastel to color the ball a little bit more, and I rolled the clay until I ended up with a round bead with a beautiful marbled effect. And then I use this skewer to poke a hole. It's better to use a toothpick. You will end up with smaller holes. And then you just have to use a needle tool and make indentations. I'm aiming an organic look for the bead. And if necessary, you can use the toothpick again and shape the hole. I intend to make a beautiful stem for this pumpkin bead, and I am going to use a little bit of scrap clay, and I'm using scrap clay colored with the navy blue pastel, but you could use just scrap clay. And I've also used imitation gold metal leaf, and I've rolled like a teardrop shaped bead. And then I've used gold metal leaf to decorate it. I've put it on a toothpick, and then I just pressed this stem onto the marbled bead, gently of course. And you'll notice that there are some scrap metal leaf on the bead, and I think these metal scraps enhance the faux ceramic look of the finished bead. You can use the needle tool again and refine the indentations. For the second bead, I've made a round bead, and then I turned the round bead into a novel bead. Again, we are aiming for organic shapes, so don't worry, you don't need the perfect shape for this bead. And again, I use the skewer to poke the hole, but on a second thought, it's better to use a toothpick. You'll have to use a needle tool and make the indentations for the pumpkin design. And I've prepared some white clay passed on the setting number 4. You can use scrap clay again. And I've put some imitation gold metal leaf on top. I've gently pressed the metal leaf onto the clay. And then I'm going to use the etching pearl tools, the middle one and the largest one, to decorate the bead. And in order to use the etching pearl, normally you should press it into the clay decorated with the metal leaf, turn it right and left, and normally the pearl should be trapped inside the etching pearl. And then when you put it on top of the polymer clay surface where you want to attach the bead, you should turn the etching pearl tool left and right, and the bead should stick to the base. Sometimes I get to decorate my pieces like this, but sometimes it's not easy to pick up the pearl. So if I just cut it, but it's not strapped inside the tool, I just take it with my craft knife or my fingers, and I gently apply it on the surface that I want to decorate. It is very important to use baking paper and gently press these dots, these pearls, into the base. And then we're going to use again navy blue chalk pastel, but this time I've scraped it and I've mixed it with some liquid clay. And I'm going to use this mixture to give a beautiful faux ceramic effect to this bead. And I'm using this colored liquid clay to color the areas in between the lines with dotted pearls. And I've also colored the upper part and the bottom of the bead in the same time. And I really like how the bead looks with these blue colored areas. You can still see white in some areas, and I really like this faux ceramic effect. For the third bead, which is in fact a stack bead, I've prepared green chalk pastel or dark orange chalk pastel and light orange chalk pastel. And I'm also going to use a little bit of green mica powder for one of the beads. So I've rolled a larger bead, and this is going to be the base bead of the three stacked beads. And I rolled a round bead, and then I put it on a skewer, and I used the ripple blade to make an interesting pattern on top of the bead. I just gently pressed the ripple blade into the bead while holding the bead on top of the skewer or the toothpick. And then I've scraped some green chalk pastel, and I used the brush to color the bead with the chalk pastel. And I colored the bead all around, but I'm not coloring the upper part of the bead because we are going to stack three beads, and in order for these beads to adhere to one another, you need to have clay, which is not decorated with surface agents like chalk pastels. And in order to add more interest to this bead, I decided to add a little bit of green mica powder on top of the green chalk pastel for a slight shine. And I like the end look of the bead. And I use the brush to apply the green mica powder. And to add more definition to the bead and more interest, I decided to use white acrylic paint and the ripple blade again to make an interesting pattern on top, an interesting print pattern on top of the bead. And then you just have to put the bead on top of a metal cutter and let the paint dry. Then I roll the second smaller bead. I put it on a skewer, and I'm going to use again the ripple blade to create the same textured pattern on top of the bead. And I decided to hold the bead in place while wrapping my hand in a baby wipe. And this time I'm using dark orange chalk pastel to color the bead, but you'll notice that in some areas the color is darker, and in other areas the color is lighter. And again, I'm not coloring the upper part of the bead because we are going to stack a third bead, and this time I'm not coloring the bottom neither because we are going to press this bead into the bottom third larger bead. And again, I used some white acrylic paint and the ripple blade to make an interesting print on top of this bead as well. And for the third bead, I rolled a smaller round bead from white polymer clay. And you will notice in the finished design that I used some neon inks to color the bead, but on a second thought, I think I like the design with just the white clay bead more. It was more interesting. Sometimes you have to know where to stop and not to do too much, not to color too much, not to add too many things. So this is the design that I prefer. And then I've used a skewer that I put underneath the green bead and a needle tool on top of the white bead to gently press and stack the three beads together. And then I put them on metal cutters and I've baked the beads for 45 minutes in the preheated oven. You just have to let the clay cool down. And for two of the beads, I'm going to use resin to enhance the faux ceramic look. So for the first blue bead with the golden stem, I've applied a thin coat of resin, use UV resin using a brush. I've also applied a thin coat of UV resin for the second bead because I really love when I'm making blue or ceramic beads to pair them with UV resin for a very beautiful faux ceramic look. And then I just used my UV lamp to cure the beads for 2 minutes, for 2 consecutive minutes, and I'm using a high power UV lamp. And for the third bead, I kept it as it was. I did not varnish or apply any resin because I like this kind of faux ceramic look, and I hope you like it too. If you liked this idea, here's what to watch next.